Welcome everyone to OnPodcast, the Microsoft podcast. We talk about Microsoft stuff on a podcast. I'm your host today. I'm Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by
David Allen, the fun one on another Friday. Glad to see you guys.
thank you guys for joining us for another weekend full of Windows headlines and news. We will be covering, for those of you who just kind of want a quick overview to see if you want to stay along with us, we'll be covering quite a bit actually, talking about uh, Microsoft getting another Activision approval. So we're one step closer to making their monster gaming ambitions a reality. We're going to be talking about Sega making some moves in mobile. We're going to talk about possibly developing an ARM-based Surface Go, which I think should be better than what we've been getting previously. We're going to be talking about getting a new competitor in search, which is its old competitor, Google, and why that's a weird, confusing headline. We'll be talking about Microsoft versus Elon Musk, which started this week, and we'll see that last. But we will be getting into all of that after we do our headline. Our opening discussion actually will be about the old topic, which is better, Windows or Mac OS? For those of you who have been around for the last, I don't know, 30 years or so, I'm sure you've had thoughts and comments and opinions about this. So why not drug it back up so we can, have the flaming fanboy war start all over again? A new report from Make Use of, and I believe it's kind of a blog that's taking consideration of, user feedback, saying that Windows 11 surpasses Mac OS. Pause. You just want to savor that in terms of performance and overall functionality. We're a Windows-centric podcast, so we're all probably cheering right now. What do you think about just that phrasing alone?
I agree with that. And then this is something we have talked about in the past. I think, and I don't want to steal any thunder from our opening discussion, but I think Mac has been kind of stale a little bit over the last few years. They've kind of, put a little bit of watercolor paint on it, made it look pretty, but I think things used to be the other way around, or at least I felt like they were. I felt like there was a time many years ago that maybe Mac was more in tune with what, the average consumer wanted. They were the first to bring a real integration among products. Microsoft was kind of out there. There really wasn't any type of integration of any sort. And I think now things have kind of reversed. Microsoft has said, look, we've got our phone link, we've got, the cloud, and I think they're really starting to make things more accessible to the average consumer on a wide level. You can do much more in Windows. I hate to say it because I once was a Mac guy, but you can do more in Windows than Mac easier, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think you perfect segue into what we're talking about. While all opinions are subjective, the author of this report is trying to do an objective thing by classifying exactly what they mean by performance and functionality, starting off with a few different things. One of them being hold on, let me get through the report itself. That one of the measures that they're using is enhanced multitasking capabilities. And this is specifically with the Snap features, the Snap layouts that have been introduced in Windows 11, where, depending on whatever type of screen size you have, you can do dual monitor, you can have ultra wide, you can do, your typical 16:9, but because of the way it's built in the operating system, you're giving a multitude, upwards of 6 different options to kind of lay out windows on your screen automatically. I mean, obviously you can go in and manually adjust things if you want to as well. This is in contrast to Apple's, which automatically gives you 2. Again, you can also go and readjust as necessary. But again, if you have dual monitors, ultra wide, things like that, these things are taken into consideration right off the bat, out of the box. So that's one point for Windows if you're of that of someone who needs windowing assistance. The other thing that they were saying that makes it kind of more performative or functional is the taskbar. They're saying that I think it's the dock in macOS does offer some performance things, but it's really just a kind of an app launcher in general. The taskbar in Windows has a little more functionality, where and a lot more customization. One could mention not just from a visual standpoint, where you can add gradients or you can add color theming that matches your apps, that matches schedule for your time of day, things like that. But just being able to kind of pair apps, I believe that's coming soon as well. But just kind of, being able to either change from seeing just the icons to seeing the full description of apps, what you kind of can pull in and out, what you can pin to, things like that. They're saying that point goes to Microsoft or Microsoft operating system or Windows being able to kind of do all of that. And like I said, we'll be getting some more updates for the taskbar in upcoming Windows 11 updates, I believe, probably later this year. The other thing that they were saying that is kind of a boon is clipboard, surprisingly or not. Now, we know that Apple, I would arguably say, has a superior platform distribution of content where you can move things from your iPad to your desktop to your phone through, I believe it's AirDrop.
AirDrop, yep.
But for this particular report, they're saying that Clipboard keeps a record of the last 25 items that you've cut or copied, and that includes images, text, links, things of nature, and that you can just quickly pull up with, I believe it's Windows V or whatever. Windows V is a combination to bring all those things, and those are synced across. They're saying that that's a plus for the operating system, something that I don't believe Clipboard in macOS specifically is able to do. Again, there are alternatives using AirDrop. If we're doing clipboard to clipboard functionality, if you don't have an iPhone, for whatever reason, you still have a Mac, which you're an oddity. This is a plus for them. Besides that, compatibility with Android apps. This is through the Amazon App Store. And there's also a way in the Google Play Store. That's been their report. I want to add note that Microsoft also has a few additional social media apps that the macOS platform doesn't currently have as desktop options, such as TikTok, I believe, and Instagram as standalone apps in the Mac App Store for whatever reason. The last thing we have, I believe, is the phone link situation. Now, macOS does have, again, AirDrop to kind of do these kind of things, but with phone link, it's Windows is opened up to a much larger audience of Android users now. Specifically, Samsung users. If you have a Samsung phone, there are other Android phones that can connect to it, but you get the most functionality if you have a Samsung phone. But again, this is where you are seeing your text messages. You're able to mirror your apps on the phone itself. So if you're not a fan of the, I don't know, 50, 60 Amazon App Store apps that are being leveraged in that, you can use any app on your phone and mirror it on here. So again, if you have a specialty app that you need, a parking app, a toll app, a train app, something like that that you can't find anywhere else on the desktop, but you want a specialized app, you can pull it straight from your phone right on your desktop. Again, these are just some of the 5 things that this report kind of picked up. Windows 11 offers a little more functionality than Mac OS. Now, with that being said, what are your thoughts on the overall state of Mac OS versus Windows OS in 2023?
I've got to kind of go back on some of the things that I have supported in the past. The phone integration, for example, the AirDrop that you talked about, those things have been in Mac OS for 7, 8 years now. And that's the thing. It's just text messages. It's just phone calls. That's it. There's not any app movement between devices. There's not a notifications bar. It's still just the one little click. The Mac, everybody knows what the little messages icon looks like on a Mac, the little green icon in the middle. Click the little icon, and all you get is your contacts on the left, your ability to call them, your ability to message them. And to me, that's where things really separate out, because if you're going to get involved with Apple, like you said, you're a weirdo if you don't buy completely into the ecosystem, because you almost have to. You have to have each device for it to work correctly. Now, Microsoft recently in Phone Link did add the ability to connect an iPhone to Phone Link. Something I have learned that I will share with everybody. When you do it with an iPhone, be aware it is a Bluetooth connection only. So you do have to keep in mind if you're moving in your house and you've got a good sized house that when you get outside of Bluetooth range, you kind of lose that sync with an iPhone. The Android phone, as you mentioned, will use the Wi Fi in your house to help things stay synced with your phone link. For example, I can have phone link open, go outside, do something with the family, come back in. Any text messages I received while I was outside are there and on phone link by the time my phone has come back in and has reconnected. Those are just little things that Apple's not there. They're just not there yet. And it's a part of our daily life that, we all communicate with messages and notifications. That's the main way of communicating and sparking a conversation, an interaction. You get a notification on your phone, you react to it. So Windows to me has really moved forward, and if anything, has kind of bypassed the old fruit company over there just a little bit. Now the things you mentioned about the taskbar, I agree with. Those are subjective. Some people like that stuff, some people don't. I can tell you, as far as Snap Windows goes, unless Apple has changed something I've missed, that requires a third party app on Apple to be able to rearrange your windows in somewhat of a Snap Windows fashion. I use Snap Windows every day when we're editing news posts. I've got my source in one, and where we're working on the post in the other, I may have another Snap window open with Teams. You cannot do that natively on an Apple product.
No,
It's
you're
little
absolutely
things.
correct.
It's the
Yeah.
little things.
Again, and I think I personally love Windows. I know we can easily turn this into a macOS bashing session,
Easily.
easily, and part of me wants to, but I'm
Yeah.
going to try and be a reporter and be a little more objective. They also mentioned that it still stands in 2023 that the plethora of dedicated written apps still goes to the benefit still goes to Windows. Now, the playing field has been leveled, but with web apps, macOS does get a variety of well-polished looking apps in the macOS store, but the number of just apps in general still is weighed heavily, especially in enterprise business, things like that for Windows. Like I said, I believe, I just want to say, as someone who uses Windows every day and who uses macOS, things like that, that the level of polish is still, I will still give it to Apple for that. I think one of the biggest draws isn't necessarily the operating system for people these days, because we do a lot of web-based things. And Microsoft's doing its best to keep up with Chrome, with adding all these features and making Edge its own platform, where you can basically go in, and we were just discussing off mic, turning certain apps or certain websites into apps, making them feel native notifications, pinning them to the taskbar for easy usage and not having to necessarily have your browser open, constantly draining your battery or whatnot. We were just talking about, if you like phone link and you still want to have that native integration of your messages and notifications, I think it's Google's Android messaging website, essentially the .com, turn it into an app using Edge into the taskbar and then get all your notifications in that same notification tray as though they were native. And that's just another way that, I don't think you necessarily in macOS. Maybe you can. I'm not sure if Safari allows you to create web apps and then put them in the dock, but
I don't think so.
it's just, it's just one thing. And I believe that Windows 8, they are getting there. We were talking to our editor-in-chief. I believe, I'm starting to see that polish coming to Windows. It's taking forever, but the transition from Windows 8 to Windows 10 was bad. It was rough. There were still, we complain about, hidden menus from Windows, still showing up in the same way that they normally do. And there's still a lot of that through Windows 11. It's less than it was in Windows 10. The animations are getting better. The resource management is getting better. The UI consistency, the Stark UI. Oh, okay. The Stark UI of the flat Windows 8 versus, I believe what the rest of the web is adopting, which is, rounded corners and, a soft uh, look on things is present in Windows 11. You're also getting um, a nice consistency within Microsoft's own apps between the web and what it has as a dedicated app. So when you switch between those two platforms, it isn't jarring. You're not saying, "Oh, this is the crappy web version of this looks like PowerPoint," and the dedicated PowerPoint app, things like that. So again, maybe in Windows 12, we'll finally get to that mark where people can say, "Hey, visually speaking, and system resource wise, Windows 11 or Windows 12 is on par with Mac." Now what we need is for Intel to keep up.
That's what I was about. That's what I was about to say. If you reverse this conversation and you throw it in the hardware perspective, you kind of see things go the other way with
Yes.
the power versus efficiency ratio of what Apple can do. But we are seeing slowly, but we are seeing it. We are seeing Intel slowly close that gap. And we're seeing discussions in 2024 and 2025 when we get done with this new 13th gen chip that we're going to start seeing some of the gap closing a little faster. Now you throw AMD into that a little bit, you've got a different discussion. They're, in my opinion, they can achieve closer to what Apple can do, but they've got to do that at the sacrifice of battery life. AMD can give you the battery life, to rival something that Apple can offer if you're only going to open a few apps at a time and you can deal with things being a little bit slower. I will give Apple credit that hardware wise in their laptop and desktop line, nobody can get to their power performance ratio yet. I've got to call it what it is on that one. Nobody can get there yet. The gap is closing. There is some concern, and I'll stop here, but I did see something this week where the M3 had been possibly canceled or postponed. That the M1s and the M2s are good enough that Apple is not seeing people buying MacBooks at the rate they once were. So some of this power and efficiency was good on the pocketbook in the beginning. It may not be so good on the pocketbook going forward. So we're going to have to see how Apple handles that. They're not used to sliding down the money tree. They're used to the money tree getting bigger. So we're going to have to see how Apple handles this. Do they panic and say, well, we did too much too quick? Or do they pivot to something else to keep building the money tree? We'll have to see.
Yeah, and to put a final pin on this, and we'll move on to our next section. Those of you who are having your own conversations about which is better, if you've been privileged enough to have operated in both, I know it's, like I said, it's a privilege to be able to do both. Just ask yourself, has Windows in year 2022, whatever the last time you used it, crash as often as it used to be mocked for? That was like a big thing. The battery life on it, has it improved since the last time you remember using it? And I believe what was the third measure for it? It was crashing, life, um, oh, and general performance. Are you able to hear the fans when you're rendering video or using CAD and things like that? Because those are the things that stuff can sort of work with and make better. And I believe as an operating system level things those are doing, but actually that Apple provides. That's why everyone kind of conflates like its performance is great. I'm like, well, yeah, they fine-tune the fans and the machine all around it. Microsoft can only fix the operating system. Intel has to work on the heating and stuff like that. So does it crash as often? You're getting a bit better battery life. And how is the app performance when you're moving around the operating system? If you can, if those three things have improved, then I could say in Windows in 20 a much better spot than it was when it was the butt of all jokes for quite a bit. Now, let's move on to I will let you start with what you got.
Well, I'm going to stay in the Windows camp here for just a little while. We're at that point in the year where we're starting to hear some rumors of what's coming from Microsoft. We know they generally do their fall refresh of hardware in sometime in October, and we do know that rumors are telling us that Microsoft is possibly working on an 11-inch Surface Pro and a Surface Go 4. Now, here's the thing. The Surface Go 4 is looking to be the first ARM-powered entry into the Surface Go lineup. We've always had the Surface Pro X, and the new Surface has that what they call the 5G line. Now, we don't know yet if the Surface Go 4 will have 5G. That has not come out yet, but it's interesting that Microsoft is considering a Surface Pro 11-inch, like we were just talking about with our Windows and Mac comparisons and differences. That would give Microsoft something that kind of mimics what Apple has going on with the iPad Pro. We know that Apple has the iPad Pro 11, and then I think there's the iPad Pro 12 or 13-inch in it. That kind of puts us in line. So Microsoft has been working on the tablet interface in Windows to make it more touchscreen friendly. Now, if I'm going to throw a kick into this somewhere, when you use an iPad, you've got apps designed for a tablet-like experience. So I'm hoping that if Microsoft does go to the 11-inch, I would feel like they're looking at it more as a tablet and maybe a little bit less of a standalone PC. I couldn't imagine, sitting down and typing on an 11-inch Surface Pro for 7-8 hours a day. My eyeballs would pop out of my head, I think. But, what do the developers do, and how do developers tackle, making their apps tablet friendly, kind of like Apple has done with the iPad? That's going to be where the catch is there. If the software and the hardware can mesh, I think we got a good product there.
Yeah, it should be noted. I believe the previous Surface, 5-inch devices, so they're moving up 0.5 of an inch. I don't know if that's going to be reflected in maybe a reduced bezel or whatnot. Maybe they're just trimming that and giving us more screen, or maybe they're just making a larger device in general. But putting on ARM should really make it cooler. Again, as someone who owned it ago, those things could run hot just because they were running various versions of Intel SoCs in there. Maybe potentially a tad bit thinner as well. So like you said, maybe this will be more of a dedicated tablet and price.
Well, I think that's where ARM should have started, was in the Go. That's just my 2 cents.
Oh, I think everyone was kind of scratching their head. The Celeron, while it's a cheap chip, and still not as cheap as what you can get with licensing for the Snapdragon. So you're going to get a maybe reduction in price. Maybe the biggest thing to get this thing off the ground. And again, with some kind of wireless connectivity. We will keep an eye on that. We're waiting to hear about a bunch of new hardware because I believe the Surface Laptop Studio 2, Laptop Studio 2, yeah, it's getting a refresh as well. So we're going to bring out in the fall for hardware. Moving on, we got Sega announces it's acquiring Angry Studio for roughly $775 million. What does that have to do with Microsoft? It's tangentially related. What's is that I believe it's Rovio, which is the creators of Angry Birds, big hit about what, I don't know, 5-10 years. But they are a game that's on the Netflix platform, and this is how we boomerang back to Microsoft. Netflix and Microsoft, while they are business partners in several different fields, I do believe that they are agreement for gaming. They are still competitors, and I believe there are games that are being on Netflix platform that will not be released to Game Pass. I believe they'll be released for Netflix and the Switch and some other things, but specifically excluded from that. So they'll be competing in the effort, and who knows if Sega is just picking sides at this point, if they've decided they're going to produce games for Netflix specifically as a platform in order to stay in business. But it looks like lines in the sand are starting to be drawn between at least Netflix and Microsoft right now. We'll see how Amazon plays into this, but it is big to note that Sega is wanting to get into mobile right now, while Nintendo, I believe, is actually retrenching and going back more into its own handhelds versus being on phones and things like that. So we got Microsoft wanting to be in mobile. We have trying to help them boost mobile. We have Amazon still doing its cloud thing, and we also have Sony, who just, I believe, acquired a company to help them with their mobile efforts. So mobile is the new frontier for a lot of these gaming things. So we'll keep an eye on how this acquisition plays out and what kind of partnerships arrive from that. What else do you got for us?
Let's see. We've got. I'm gonna change gears a little bit here. Something that came out this morning for those Google fans out there. I think there'll be some folks that listen to our podcast or watch it on YouTube that might get some interest in this. Bard, for those that have been accepted to the Bard preview program, has gotten a neat update this morning to where it will actually help you with your code. It does Java, Python, C, C++, and many others. There's over 20 choices there. What's really cool about it, I did get a chance to play around with it briefly. You can ask it to write code for you. It will produce what you're looking for. It will help you debug your code if you ask it to, and it will also, you can say, hey, can you make this code more efficient? It will also help you with the efficiency of your code. Now, something to keep in mind that Google did caution in their release is this is all in preview, and these learning models are not perfect, so please check your output versus what you expect in your code. Now, something that came to my mind, I was once a developer / computer science student back in my younger days, and I still remember the things that you learn as a computer science student is how to write these basic programs, and it's generally one way in, one way out. So it's going to be interesting from an educational point of view. How are things like Bard and even Bing Chat and Chat GPT that can do code on some level, have we gone too far with the coding? Because students can very simply start asking these AI systems questions about their code. So the professors out there are going to have to regenerate some of their ways of teaching and evaluating students, I think, because AI is getting very intelligent here to where you can kind of do some substitutions, folks, from what you know versus what AI knows.
Yeah. On the same Google trend, I got a story about Magi, which is Google's upcoming AI-powered rival Microsoft. And I say rival and just compete with. Okay, guys, out ahead of ourselves. Bing isn't the monster machine search engine out there, but it has made some adjustments, obviously, recently with adding machine learning and the way it kind of just presents its results that differ from Google. And, there are anecdotal rumblings about how the quality of Google search has deteriorated enough for people to question its viability. that Samsung, if we haven't, but we're about to, mention that Samsung is thinking about potentially dropping Google search for Bing. Now, again, Microsoft and Samsung are really good partners. They've tried to do this once before, and I think they've backtracked. We'll see how far they go with this effort. But in relation to Samsung, even contemplating the notion, is kind of put a fire underneath Google. And it looks like recent reports reveal that Google is preparing to develop a new search engine leveraging AI and is currently enhancing its current search engine with an array of AI functionalities and machine learning. This project is called Project Magi. It's in its early phases. I believe it consists of employees, which is still a lot. Its intention is to deliver a significantly more personalized experience to users than the existing version of just kind of, backstop of ads and links. I don't know what this means visually. I haven't, kind of nailed down any of that. We've seen a roadmap for this, but the idea is to leverage Bard, I assume, in the future, and bake it into the search engine, which means that it'll remember contextual searches. So if you, are constantly searching up the actress, Scarlett Johansson or whatnot, maybe the next time you start searching for other things related to her, as far as like box or personal relationships or anything like that, it'll give you anecdotal additional information, especially if she has like a recent divorce, or she's in a new movie, or she has another child, something like that. That'll come up alongside other searches of things like that. These are all predictions. We don't know exactly Google's plan, but we do know that they're planning to come out with a fourth version of their Google search, which again is more tailored towards a personalized experience for users, and to kind of ward off any more businesses or companies or partners thinking about jumping ship to another platform.
And you better believe they're going to get those advertisements in there, folks. They're going to be there, and I think
personalized.
Yes,
that's what I'm talking about.
I think this is just like we have mentioned in other podcasts. We're just scratching the surface of how AI and how we perceive and interpret search results is getting ready to change. It's already changing, and it's kind of like changing an old habit. Let's go back to our Apple and Microsoft discussion. For somebody that has used either or for 10 years or longer, it's harder to go to a new way of doing things. And I think over the next few months and even on into the next few years, the way we ask for data, the way we search for data, the way we manipulate data is going to change, and it's going to be very interesting. As humans, we are sometimes resistant to change. And I'm interested to see, we when the internet became something that was popular, the search engine kind of got everybody started. That's kind of what kicked it off. Then Google came, and Google says, hey, we've got a better search engine. Then, Bing says, well, hey, we can do that too. We're going to try to be like Google. Well, we can debate whether they got there or they didn't, depending on what you like. But now we have moved to the next step. Now we're battling on the level of AI. So how does this change the way we interpret and work with information, the way we process it? It's a little worrisome to me, because I'm one that I don't like a whole lot of change in some of my regular daily activities, but I'm also optimistic and excited to see where we're going.
Yeah, me too. What else you got for us?
Let's see. Well, we've got our guy, Mr. Elon. While we're on the topic of search, Mr. Elon Musk has just that guy. He just keeps stirring it up, folks. Now, guess what? He is mad at Microsoft. So I guess what we're going to have here is the billionaire throwdown that Twitter has been dropped from the Microsoft advertising options in the Microsoft ad program. Like when you use Microsoft ads, you are given choices of where you want your ads to appear, such as, of course, Bing, and then LinkedIn, and then Twitter. Well, for those that have, don't keep up with programming regularly, Mr. Musk changed the deal and says, look, to use the Twitter API to interface with Twitter, you have to start paying. So that meant several $1,000s more a month that Microsoft has to pay out just to allow its ad users to advertise on Twitter. Well, I'm not going to get into my personal feelings about it, but I think Microsoft is just saying, hey, Elon, since you have taken over Twitter, the usage and the analytics of Twitter have gone down. Now you're asking us for money to even use it. We don't think so, so we're just going to drop it off. Well, Mr. Musk, Mr. Lawsuit Man, is sitting over there, and he says, well, you can do that, but you're still using Twitter data, and you're still manipulating that data, and you still have access to some of our data. I don't like that. That's not cool. So if you don't put the advertising integration back, you might get a lawsuit. Now that's not necessarily a lawsuit that I'm aware of, has not happened yet, but I think we all like to watch Elon go around and around sometimes and see what he comes up with. And I don't know that there'll be a lawsuit, but there could be. I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, you're right. He is threatening to sue. I believe his exact quotes were, or his paraphrasing what he was saying is that Microsoft had been using Twitter data, had basically ripped off Twitter's database and demonetized it by removing ads. They're selling this data to its customers, and he doesn't think that's a winning solution. We don't know if there's any fact to that. Neither have followed up since this. Again, Musk responded to dropping it. Microsoft dropped it in probably the quietest way possible by just tossing it on a support page in their Microsoft blog. Musk threat didn't say if he was moving forward with it, but to your point, Microsoft is doing the financial calculations, probably saying that Twitter is 50% of its advertisers already for other unrelated things. This API licensing fee, which I believe can be upwards of $42,000 a month, just to have access to it. Again, Microsoft, it's less than a penny in the bucket for them, but I believe that going forward, their customers won't get the return on investment that they would have accessing the Twitter audience because of all of these changes, the way that they're doing the check marks, the way that content moderation is on the platform. So they're opting to just say, hey, everyone who's on our platform, Microsoft is saying this, everyone who's on our platform, you still have access to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You just won't have access to the Twitter clients. We'll see if either one of these people stand down in this digital version of chicken. But this is just something we thought we'd mention because it is important. The last thing I have is Microsoft is considering pulling a certain title from Xbox, which I believe it's called One Step After Fall. The reason why they're doing this is because the narrative adventure game also allows language stacking of its achievements. This is when a game sees separate releases in different languages with separate though identical achievements handed out. This is done to attract achievement hunters and get them to buy multiple versions of a game. In this case, One Step After Fall can reward players with 1,000, G's or gamer points in as little as 15 minutes. The fact that I believe this sold the times, and again, you just have to buy a different version of the game, and so you can get about 3,000 45 minutes if you are an achievement whore, just so to speak. Microsoft is thinking about dropping the game. The company, I believe, is based in Brazil. They released a statement which has been translated from Portugal, so I'm not even going to try and speak in Portuguese, but it roughly translates to, we are officially speaking out on the removal of One Step After Fall's version. Initially, on behalf of the Bergerson Game Studios, we would like to apologize for all the inconvenience caused to you, friends, players, and consumers. Again, they don't know. They didn't mention that they would change anything. I don't know if they even see that they may be in the wrong for this. But this is one instance of a game that is being pulled from Gamer Pass for achievement basis, not content. Which it just shows that Microsoft is still trying to keep the Game Pass platform, moderated. Well, best headline rapid for people.
They're keeping it a level playing field. You just got to play nice, folks. I mean, I hate to say it, but follow Microsoft. Follow Microsoft's rules, and things tend to take care of themselves.
Very true. I think that wraps us up for our last one. We got South Africa giving
we have South Africa did approve the Activision Microsoft merger. Now, let me get to my information on that. We have in a press release, the commission found that the proposed transaction is unlikely to result in significant foreclosure concerns, as the parties do have the ability and incentive to foreclose competing game distributors, particularly. So this is now that South Africa has accepted the merger, approved it, if you will. We have South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Chile, Serbia, and most recently Japan. Now, Japan kind of sticks out with me because guess what is made in Japan, folks? That kind of surprised me when I read this. In fact, I had to go back and read it twice. The PlayStation is made and manufactured, and Sony is correct me if I'm wrong here, but a Japanese company. Am I right?
I believe so.
Microsoft still has the FTC to get through and some things here in the United States to really, get this kicked off. But I did see something where there is a FTC hearing in August. So I'm taking that as a hint that we have given up on the June-July timeframe, that we may be pushing this on to the end of the year or early 2024 for a full merger, the merger being final, but at least Microsoft is getting some wins and moving forward.
Yeah, and with that seems like a relatively happy note to end on. Again, we want to thank you guys for joining us for another week of news. We hope it was entertaining, some of it. We hope a lot of it was informative. If it was neither, head over to our website, .com, and get all of the details we might have missed in our conversations between the two of us. Where can people follow you if they want to speak out or comment or just see what you're about?
I've got to go to Mr. Musk product. I'm over there, David PAJ 1978. You can find me on Twitter as long as he keeps the lights on.
I will be standing right next to him playing the violin as though this were the end of the Titanic. I am also on Twitter at Mindhead1. You will see us going down with the thank you guys again, and go ahead and enjoy your weekend.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Thanks again.